being represented and not being admired for our beauty. If we felt like that as black women, why would we want to do that to other women? Why would we now need to make other people downplay their beauty so that we can feel, no, that's not how it works. I don't need someone with blonde hair and blue eyes to downplay their beauty because I know my beauty. Do you understand? It doesn't bother me that a woman feels and says that she's beautiful. Amen. Why shouldn't she feel that? Why have we gotten to a point where certain colors or certain kinds of people have to be afraid of loving themselves and loving the way they look?
Nicki Minaj. Nicki the Bob, Nicki the Ninja, Nicki the Harajuku Barbie. I want to start off with a disclaimer and an empathetic touch, because from black woman to black woman, I think that there's always room for that. I think everyone can agree that Nicki Minaj will go down in history as one of the greatest rappers of our time. What she has done for specifically women in rap is going to be...
All right, so we need to talk because Nicki Minaj is officially losing fans at a pace nobody saw coming, and at this point she's quickly turning into one of the most controversial figures in pop culture right now. Over the past few days, Nicki Minaj has gone from being a rap icon with one of the most loyal fan bases in music history to someone many fans now see as completely out of touch with the very communities that helped build her career. And the moment that really set everything off, Nicki Minaj showing up at Turning Point USA, a conservative political event, alongside Erica Kirk, the widow of Charlie Kirk. That appearance alone was already enough to shock people. But what truly sent the internet into a frenzy was what Nicki chose to say on that stage, and who immediately amplified her words afterward. While speaking at the event, Nicki began addressing the topic of beauty standards in America, specifically comparing how black girls and white girls are perceived. Now, to understand why this became such a flashpoint, we need context. For decades, American beauty standards have largely centered whiteness, fair skin, blonde hair, blue eyes, while the beauty of people of color, especially black women, has often been minimized, overlooked, or outright dismissed. That's not speculation, it's something that's been discussed in media, fashion, and entertainment for generations. Because of that history, conversations about beauty, race, and representation are extremely sensitive. People don't take them lightly, especially when those conversations happen on political stages with very specific audiences, and we've seen how explosive this topic can be recently. A perfect example is Sydney Sweeney. Back in July, American Eagle released a campaign featuring her in a pair of jeans with the slogan, "Sydney Sweeney has good genes." On the surface, that sounds harmless, but the campaign sparked immediate backlash because Sydney represents the exact beauty standard that has historically been pushed as the ideal in America. The response was so intense that both American Eagle and Sydney Sweeney faced non-stop criticism for weeks. That situation showed just how charged these conversations still are. So when Nicki Minaj got on stage at Turning Point USA and started talking about black girls and white girls in that same context, people were already on edge. Here's the part of her speech that's now circulating everywhere. Nicki said, "We're not being represented and not being admired for our beauty. If we felt like that as black women, why would we want to do that to other women? Why would we now need to make other people downplay their beauty so that we can feel good? No, that's not how it works. I don't need someone with blonde hair and blue eyes to downplay their beauty because I know my beauty. It doesn't bother me that a woman feels and says that she's beautiful. Why shouldn't she feel that? Why have we gotten to a point where certain colors or certain kinds of people have to be afraid of loving themselves and loving the way they look?" Now, on paper, some people felt her message was about self-confidence and rejecting insecurity. But the context, location, and audience completely changed how those words landed, because this wasn't said on a neutral platform. This wasn't a general interview. This was said at a conservative event that has a long history of culture war rhetoric. And that's where things spiraled.
We're not being represented and not being admired for our beauty. If we felt like that as black women, why would we want to do that to other women? Why would we now need to make other people downplay their beauty so that we can feel, no, that's not how it works. I don't need someone with blonde hair and blue eyes to downplay their beauty because I know my beauty. Do you understand? It doesn't bother me that a woman feels and says that she's beautiful. Amen. Why shouldn't she feel that? Why have we gotten to a point where certain colors or certain kinds of people have to be afraid of loving themselves and loving the way they look? Like, isn't that wild? Be boys.
Amen.
Be boys. It's okay. Be boys. It's nothing wrong with being a boy.
Amen.
How about that?
Amen.
How powerful is that? How profound is that?
Amen.
Boys will be boys, and there's nothing wrong with that. I've traveled the world. I've performed for huge crowds all around the world. And no matter how many songs I do on that stage, it didn't mean as much as this. Because
right now, black culture is being held captive by influences, songs,
Which
and role
influences?
models. I mean, Nicki Minaj, Cardi B.
Okay, Nicki Minaj is causing dads to leave the home.
Hold on a second. I don't think that's a good role model for 18-year-old black girls. I don't think that songs that are talking about like glorifying wet female genitalia is exactly, I don't know which one wrote that song. Which one was it?
I think it was Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but by the way, the role models of the 1940s and 50s for black America were completely different.
So it is a representation issue.
Hold on a second. No, not representation. It's who do you get your art from? It's what values are they?
The backlash didn't just come from fans online. It escalated fast when J.D. Vance, a major conservative political figure, jumped in and publicly praised Nicki's statement. He tweeted that what Nicki said was really profound, paraphrasing her words and framing them as a rejection of what he called zero-sum thinking. He went on to say that people in power pit groups against each other and that Nicki Minaj was rejecting that narrative. And that's when fans truly checked out, because now Nicki's words weren't just her own. They were being used to support a broader political agenda, whether she intended that or not. That's how it played out publicly. Almost immediately, fans began unfollowing her in massive numbers. And the numbers don't lie. Nicki Minaj reportedly lost over 1 million followers in just a few days, dropping from around 28 million to roughly 26.9 million. For an artist of her size, that's not normal fluctuation, that's backlash. The LGBTQ+ community in particular felt deeply betrayed. And this is important because Nicki didn't just have LGBTQ+ fans, she built her career alongside them. From early in her rise, Nicki embraced gay and trans fans openly. She appeared on RuPaul's Drag Race. She famously said, "I pledge allegiance to the drag." Her concerts, her music, her imagery, all of it resonated deeply with queer audiences. So to see her now aligning herself with conservative spaces that have historically opposed LGBTQ+ rights felt like a complete reversal. And if that wasn't enough, Nicki didn't stop there. During her appearance, she openly praised Donald Trump, calling him handsome and dashing, and told young men that he was an amazing role model. She also referred to conservatives as the cool kids and said that this appearance meant more to her than any concert she's ever performed. That statement alone stunned fans. At that point, comparisons to Kanye West became unavoidable. Once again, fans are watching a legendary artist seemingly pivot politically in a way that alienates their core audience. So now the big question is this: is Nicki Minaj actively damaging her legacy? And what caused this sudden shift? Was this gradual and ignored, or is this a calculated move she knew would cost her fans? I want to know what you think, but before we get there, let's break down how the media reacted and what this really means.
History as one of the greatest rappers of our time. What she has done for specifically women in rap is going to be studied, has already been studied. Her style, her flow, her cadence, the things that she did branding wise, all things that should be celebrated. Amazing work. And I think that the experience that she had in the industry as a Black woman, it's obvious that there is some trauma there, and I think it led her to making maybe not the best decisions as it relates to relationship building, which created a kind of distance between her and her peers. And we watched Lifetime how that kind of broke down the fabrics of the relationships between women in rap. And I have a lot of empathy, understanding that this industry is very, very grimy and dirty, and there's really no telling the type of experience that she had. And I think there's always a place to of understanding for that. Now that I got my pleasantries out the way, I want to be very clear. I will never support it. Yes. When you go against your own identity, whether that be being a woman, being a part of the LGBT community, being Black, whatever, when you decide to actively go against your marginalized identity for personal gain, i.e. being a coon, you will lose every ounce of respect I have for you.
The media response to Nicki Minaj's Turning Point USA appearance has been swift, polarized, and deeply revealing. Not just about Nicki herself, but about the current state of celebrity culture, political alignment, and audience expectations in the digital age. Mainstream entertainment media framed the moment as a turning point in Nicki's public image. Headlines emphasized words like backlash, fan revolt, and career risk. Meanwhile, political media outlets framed her as a cultural defector, a celebrity crossing ideological lines and lending her influence to conservative narratives. What's striking is how quickly Nicki's appearance became less about her music and more about symbolism. For years, Nicki Minaj occupied a rare position, a female rapper with mainstream dominance, cultural influence, and a fiercely protective fan base. Her fans didn't just consume her art, they defended her online, mobilized for her success, and shielded her from criticism. That kind of loyalty is rare. But loyalty in the digital era is conditional. Audiences today expect consistency of values, especially when an artist's brand has been intertwined with marginalized communities. When that perceived alignment breaks, fans don't just disengage, they react emotionally. Media analysts pointed out that Nicki's words themselves were not new. Many black women have expressed similar sentiments about self-love without comparison. But context is everything. Saying those words at Turning Point USA gave them a different weight, one that couldn't be separated from the platform hosting them. Another major factor was political co-opting. Once J.D. Vance amplified Nicki's comments, the narrative shifted. The media framed her as being used, willingly or not, as a cultural shield to legitimize conservative talking points on race and identity. This is where trust eroded fastest. Fans didn't feel like Nicki was having a nuanced conversation. They felt like she was lending credibility to a movement that often undermines the very people she claims to uplift. Then there's the LGBTQ+ backlash. Media outlets highlighted how central queer fans were to Nicki's rise and how painful this moment felt to them. Commentary pieces emphasize that while artists are free to evolve politically, they are not immune to the consequences of that evolution. Another layer of analysis centers on celebrity insulation. Nicki Minaj has existed at the top of her field for over a decade. With success comes isolation. Fewer people challenge your choices. Fewer voices question your direction. That can create an echo chamber where backlash feels unexpected, even when it's predictable. Some media analysts also pointed out the generational divide. Younger fans, particularly Gen Z, are less willing to separate art from politics. They expect transparency, accountability, and alignment. When that alignment breaks, unfollowing becomes a form of protest. Others argue that Nicki is intentionally repositioning herself. In an era where controversy drives engagement, aligning with conservative spaces guarantees attention, media coverage, and debate. Whether that strategy is sustainable remains to be seen. What's undeniable is that this moment exposed a fragile truth. Celebrity power is no longer unilateral. Fans now hold the leverage. Numbers matter, engagement matters, and loyalty can evaporate quickly. Nicki Minaj may retain millions of supporters, but the cultural shift is clear. She's no longer universally protected, and history shows us that when an artist's legacy becomes overshadowed by controversy, reclaiming trust is far harder than losing it. If you love this breakdown, don't forget to like, comment, and hit the subscribe button. See you in the next video.